Welcome, friends of the Greasy Shop Rag. Today we're going to take a look at a Husqvarna 572XP chainsaw. The customer complaint is that it won't idle down and the chain won't stop turning at idle. Now there's a lot of reasons why this could be, and an air leak is one reason that usually comes up. If the saw is running lean, it's going to be running fast. Now in this case, if you look at the choke lever, when we set the choke, we actually can't set the choke. It won't stay in the choked position. The lever has to be pulled out and lifted up, and then it would stay up. But that's not happening. And the reason that's not happening is because that the throttle is held a little bit open, which makes sense. His idle speed isn't coming all the way down, and the throttle is held a little bit open. That all adds up. The question is, why won't the throttle close all the way? By the way, when the throttle is held open a little bit, that's releasing the fast idle feature, and that's why the choke won't stay on. So I was just looking at the throttle cable and making sure it was fully seated in the holder on the air filter base, and it does look like that the outer sheath is in place where it belongs. So I got an idea of what I'm going to start looking at, but before I get into the repair, I'm going to look into the cylinder, because it's just what I do. If for some reason this thing is scored, you know, the guy's not going to want to pay for a repair on anything until he gets the scoring situation sorted out, right? And it's not often that I'll get sidetracked and inspect the cylinder and find that it's scored, but the times that I do, I mean, it saves the customer and me a bunch of headaches. So the trigger's not fully releasing. The sheath appears to be seated properly in the air filter base. You know, the relationship between the fuel tank and the power head could be compromised, like an AV spring stretched or something, but everything looks as it should. What I'm thinking is that there is debris inside the trigger assembly. Now that debris could be broken pieces of the trigger assembly or the operator presence lever, or it could be actual debris like wood chips. I've found them both ways. Sometimes just a part of that plastic trigger assembly will snap off. Everything will function normally, or it would seem so, but that broken piece would be hanging up. So there's a roll pin here that holds the trigger in place. We just drive that pin out. You get the operator presence lever on top. If we get behind it, we can pry up, and you'll see in a minute here how this is retained. A couple of clips in the back where my hand is, and snapping over a peg in the front. There you can see the clips, the peg in the front, nothing broken off of there. So the theory that the operator presence lever had a broken piece that was making it hang, you know, that doesn't fly. Trigger is still hung up. You see a spring sticking up there. That spring is for the operator presence lever and gives it the feel that it has. Trying to look at the trigger, determine if the trigger is broken or if there's debris under it. Putting our punch back in just to simulate the roll pin. And there is no slack in the cable at idle when the trigger is released. There's zero slack, so it's holding open somehow. We're going to put this pin back in here and fire this thing up and see what it does. So you could see that it was fast idling when it should have just been idling normal. And if I pulled down on the trigger, it would stop the chain. The idle would go down. Clearly something wrong in the trigger or throttle cable mechanism. I don't think it has anything to do with the carburetor. So I want to unhook the throttle cable from the carburetor. It's not a hard job. You just got to pop the ferrule from the end of the cable out of the holder on the carburetor. But this one, it's fighting me this time. There, we got it. Now I want to pull the trigger out of here. And if you look real close at the handle, you'll notice that the upper screw going into the AV mount is missing. I took that out. I just edited that out of the footage. I was going to remove the whole fuel tank and I thought better of it. So we're going to try and get this trigger out of here without disassembling anything else. It will come out. And although I don't recommend using a carburetor adjustment tool, that's what I had laying in front of me, so that's what I'm using to push on it. And really, it only kind of sneaks out of here one way. And you got the spring that was pushing on the operator presence lever. You know, you got that to deal with as well. And if that weren't enough, you have the throttle cable, which is attached to the trigger too. So there's a lot that has to happen here. And I don't know if there's really a textbook way to show you this or explain it. I just fight it till it comes out like that. So there's our trigger. I don't see anything broken on here. Spring, that's the way that's supposed to look. You know, everything's normal. But if you take a look down inside the handle, yeah, that was a lot of debris. Look at it all coming out of there. There was so much debris packed underneath that trigger that it was holding it open at idle. This is not uncommon actually on these models. I don't know, I think this is the first time that I did this, but it's not the last time that I did this. This is an older video. So really, blowing those chips out of there should fix our problem. Let's see if we can get this trigger back in here. Now here's the relationship between the trigger and the operator presence lever. You know, everything looks normal here. I don't see that I have to replace any parts. This job is going to turn out just to be some labor. Yep, everything looks good. Let's see if we can get this back together. First I got to get that cable in the trigger assembly. You can't see it because it's behind my hands, and because I'm on the clock at work, I'm not being paid to get close-up shots. So we get whatever footage we get here. So we'll hook the cable into the trigger, push the whole assembly up kind of into place, but the back part still isn't up in the handle assembly. There it is now. Now I'm going to pull on the cable to get the slack out of there so it hopefully won't come disconnected from the trigger. Now we're going to put our roll pin in place. And then we can connect our ferrule on the end of the throttle cable into the holder on the carburetor, on the throttle lever shaft. Not quite there yet. Pulling the slack out of the cable, making sure the cable is seated in the holder on the air filter base, and then trying to drop the ferrule into the linkage on the carburetor, like that. There's also a holder for the other end of the throttle cable down by the trigger. And then we'll drive the pin home. This one goes in pretty good. Sometimes I'll use a dab of super glue or something if I think that the pin might slide back out. You have to be careful though that you only get the glue on either the handle or the trigger, not both. So again, we're putting the screws into the anti-vibe mount. Never really needed to take that out of there. Both sides here. So now it feels like there's a little bit of play in that trigger. That should be our fix right there. The operator presence lever, you just got to get the spring underneath it, snap the front end over the dowel, and then just push it down into place. Looks like it functions properly. We've got a hand guard. We got to put that back in place. Single screw to hold that on there. And I got all of them dollars worth of tools just outside of my reach. So I grab a scrunch instead. Anyway, that's all I'm going to have for you on Husqvarna 572XP that wouldn't settle down to an idle because a bunch of debris jammed under the trigger. Thanks for watching. Later.